the dream that we have is to have every Indian in the world wear us at least once.
Every brand has a unique story to tell. And we in DLF Malls have curated over 1,000 brands now. These past 15 years, we've seen many brands come in, incubate their new thoughts. We've had homegrown brands, we've had bridge to luxury, we have had uber luxury brands. So the thought was, why don't we take these stories out and bring it out to you all? The brands that you love, you deserve to know the story behind those brands. So here is starting a very unique series by DLF Malls, Beyond the Brand. Starting with, of course, tonight with Shantanu and Nikhil, a very creative duo who've blended creativity and business in a very unique way. They have understood what the Indian millennials stand for and what they want. And they've always stood for anti-trend, be it couture or be it the Pret line that they have started. Well, without much ado, I'd like to invite this dynamic duo, Shantanu and Nikhil Mehra.
Hello and thank you.
Thank you for coming over.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming over.
Lovely.
It was really nice.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a nice intro.
Simple and crisp.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you both really, whenever I have seen you, whenever I've interacted with you, have always given me the vibe of having your business sensibilities really on gear, at the same time extremely creative. And which is why I really wanted to talk to both of you to see how are things beyond the brand. One is, of course, you've created a fantastic brand.
Well, I don't know if there are any things beyond the brand. I think we've constantly lived the brand for the past 22 years.
People never used to take us seriously when we started our careers.
Yeah.
And when we did our first showcase, they said, you know, who are these guys, you know?
They thought we were jewelers.
Yeah. They, like,
Really?
they
Yeah.
seem so...
Jewelers?
Yeah, in fact, I remember it was 2000 when we were in Bombay for a Lakme Fashion Week fittings. Yeah. And we met the choreographers for the first time, and there were designers passing by our room where we were doing fittings. And they were all like, who are these guys?
Yeah.
They seem rather
They
straight
don't
to
look
be in
like
this
designers
industry.
at all.
They don't look like designers. What's going on with them?
Yeah.
And we had it tough for the first 7 years, I remember.
Because you didn't wear funky colors of a certain...
Yeah, maybe we didn't network as much as we were supposed to at that point in time. We were so enamored with what we were doing, and we kind of came with a mission that, you know, we want to create something that talks a little differently about India.
Right.
So, and India wasn't ready at that time. India was at that point just trying to find its own way, trying to set its own footing into fashion. And here we are, kind of very serious looking boys stepping into this
we were quite serious,
contemporary world of fashion and trying to say we're going to shake the carpet beneath your feet with what we want to do, with how we understand India. And it took us, and it took them and the people around us, the entire ecosystem, to not believe that we can do something. And it was actually courtesy of them that we had to always push the envelope and say, we can.
We can.
And we can.
We also walked into a very comfortable industry that time.
Right. Yeah.
All the designers we met were already quite settled. They were already catering to the very rich people of the country. And here we were setting up a whole business based on innovation.
Right.
Yeah.
We were anti-trend in terms of embroideries. We were very minimalistic. We did lots of different drapes and silhouettes, which was not understood by the women or the men at that point, because the market was very staid.
Staid and more on embroidery, more on traditional way and styles.
So when we came in, it was a shift as it is, because how is it that there is a sherwani which has no embroidery?
Right.
And how come there's a lehenga which has a drape?
Yeah.
Where's the dupatta? You know, so it was hard for us because a lot of people didn't understand, and maybe we were also quite early in our stage to kind of shift the market so much. But so first to 2000, still 2007, I think we were struggling quite a lot.
I think I remember when we did that collection called Camel Safari. I think that was in 2006.
Yeah,
It
around
was
that time.
it was a narrative of how we looked at her at Audrey Hepburn
Right.
in a Pushkar Mela, and I think from there
How
onwards,
cool is that?
Yeah, so
How cool is that?
I think that's where we kind of started
So it's
to.
almost like Tiffany meets Rajasthan.
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
And we love telling stories because, you know, when I was in LA studying, I was alone and I was quite lonely, and I remember the stories that I had no friends.
Right.
So I would remember the stories we used to tell each other.
Yeah.
And I realized the value of storytelling. And I think because we come from a country of storytelling,
Absolutely.
when you go outside of your country, you miss these little things about how everything is dramatized, right? So we started to dramatize our collections by having a storyline. And I think that's what got the attention of people who wanted to know more about our collections.
And I think both of you are people who let the collection speak rather than you yourself individually talk a little too much. So I think that also made a difference with the collection spoke distinctively. It, had a certain ethos which was different to what was there at that point in time.
I think you got a point, yeah.
No, we were while we were still searching for our signature. There's always a signature aesthetic that comes naturally to a designer.
Yeah.
We were searching for it. There were nuances of that signature being seen in collections after collections, but there wasn't a story that was binding that. And I think 2006 gave us that belief that, let's talk. Let's narrate and let the world know that fashion is not about 15-20 minutes of just clothes on the ramp and models walking and strutting. It's also about 20 minutes of strong storytelling.
Yeah.
And while that was happening, in very early on in our careers, we were very lucky to even dress up the likes of Mr. Amitabh Bachchan in KBC season 2, and we kind of gave him a complete twist from KBC 1, which was very suited and very kind of formal. We gave him a very informal look.
From a professor, he went to a cool chap.
For a cool chap, going back into the 70s nostalgia of how Mr. Bachchan used to dress up in that inimitable style. And then we also had in 2004 cricketers for the first time being glamorized and walking on the ramp. Despite all of this, we ourselves weren't very happy souls at what is it that we still need to do to evolve. So we became a bit more disruptive. Sometimes innovation overtook the belief that we are we good enough or aren't we? But we were still not finding our space. I think which is what kind of gave us that hunger to compete with ourselves as a brand, that let's shun ourselves from the rest of the world and let's see what are we good at. I think that whole first decade was a journey that was...
You were discovering yourself.
Ourselves.
Right? I think it's very important to find the language that you stand for and what you're comfortable with.
Correct.
And what the world sees you as doing really well.
The minute we found that language, I think then they were takers, and the focus was always on what can we do together. As a brand.
And that's brilliant. And both of you, you have a fondness for sports. That's what I've been reading. That one loves golfing and the other loves tennis. And so I believe you could have been a tennis player.
If I weren't what I'm doing now, absolutely. I was also very good in cricket. I remember very early on in my days, I was a good batsman. But somewhere down the line, I don't know, we were living in a culture where studies almost every time took precedence over sport.
There's always that bit of
so there was that underlying sporting current, and then of course Nikhil great
is
swimmer.
Fabulous in walking and swimming.
So I used to swim for Delhi for school. I swam mainly to bunk classes, but it turned out good because it was a fantastic physical experience. And then I started playing golf again to bunk school. But sport has always been an exciting part of our lives. And we, even in the collections, you'll see lots of details that are driven by sport in a way, with the fabrics that we use for men and women in our ready-to-wear range, which is got lots of spandex, lycra mix, high twist yarns, certain blends that are very good for agility.
Right.
And,
Yeah. I see that. So, from couture, you suddenly decided that you wanted to explore and expand.
Yeah.
And what brought you to go to the Aditya Birla, or rather, they approached you to see this new Pret line of SNN? I mean, and you did this pre-COVID. In COVID, it became fashionable to, do things, have alliances with the business houses. But you actually saw the opportunity before COVID. And I would really like to understand the thought process and also what's the vision for SNN, the brand.
I think Shantanu can answer this quite well, but I'll just tell you, the dream that we have is to have every Indian in the world wear us at least once.
That's lovely.
And the reason why we came back from the States is to fulfill that dream.
So you have one.
Yeah. So, one done.
One done.
Another 7.999 billion
Absolutely.
to go. So that was the beginning of the thought, and said we need to do that. So we created a couture brand. First, to ensure that we can hone our craft and also reach out to the kind of crowd we wanted to reach out to. And then thereafter.
No, so I think within couture, yes, we had done some disruptions. We felt that within couture, the attention or the focus was always going towards the bride.
Yes.
So we tried to do we tried to make a shift in menswear. So 2012 onwards, kind of innovations that we did with menswear, introducing the feminine side or bringing in some femininity through drapes, layering it. Since we were nurturing a very anti-trend philosophy within couture of minimalism, we were doing things that we are doing for SNN now within the couture umbrella, but it just didn't have its identity. And I think that is what caught the eye of Aditya Birla. And they said, there is a very strong menswear focus you guys have as a brand. Can we scale it up? And in our drawing board, we already had a vision that we will have something like an SNN, and it sort of matched and aligned to that.
Shantanu didn't tell you one story. We started doing clothes for Mr. Birla 3-4 years ago.
Yeah,
and,
that's an interesting one.
His first order of, I think it was a sherwani, and he said that how long will you take to make it? We said usually give us a month.
Right.
From that time, cut to the next year, he called and said I have to go in for the swearing in event, and I have to wear a kurta. I said fine, we'll sort it out. How long do you have? He said 4 hours. And we were able to produce it and have it ready in 4 hours. And he went for the event, came back. He says, whatever you guys are doing is superb. I want to chat.
Yeah.
So that's when the conversation started
Nice.
about how systems are working well with design.
Right.
And then we sat across on a dinner table, and we carved out the entire business plan of how we want to see SNN become the new baby.
So, one of the things that I always have wondered is the constant pressure of creating for a collection.
Yeah.
What if you have a creative block? Yeah, it's absolutely possible.
I did have one in 2018-19, and Shantanu lost 8 crores.
Ouch. I triggered something there.
Creator's life is very hectic.
It is.
Because we're always looking for the balance of happiness, and we go to different lengths to get it. And the time when I don't have it is when the design philosophy starts to. But luckily, with Shantanu backing me up, he always looks at a collection from a numbers perspective to see the volume of value it brings. And so he'll pull me back and say, buddy, I think now maybe you've done your
Tone
creative
it down
bit,
a bit.
just come back to earth and maybe do something slightly simpler for our consumers to understand us.
Yeah.
So, but I can imagine people who don't have a Shantanu, what they would go through.
Yeah.
Their businesses can shut if not being driven in the right direction.
That brings me to a thing that both of your brothers, you're working together. It does take two to tango. There must be times when you have a disagreement too. So how do you balance it all out? It's tough. I've always asked this even when there is a husband-wife duo. It's tough to run a business together. because views could be different, strategies could be different, at any given point.
We do have our sense of, I wouldn't say these are disagreements, but these, like I said, we both are chasing that same
Vision.
goal.
Yeah.
But we don't let egos come in between. So if I have made a bad business decision or a marketing decision, which may have had a trigger effect, he'll come up to me and say, if we had done this correctly, this could have happened. I go back to my drawing board and say, yes, I think we made a mistake here. It's the same thing. If there is a collection that may not have had the expectations of what we came out of what we thought it would be, he takes it without any. So these are. So if we get egos out of our way, I think whether it's a husband-wife duo and you continue to communicate. That channel of communication has to be. You cannot hide things inside of you and let it be and park it under the carpet.
Never fester.
Yeah. See, the other thing is that also, what do you want in life?
Exactly.
Right? Like the greed is never going to get over. And so for us, it is not the material as much as it's an emotional well-being. The moment our emotional well-being is not working out, then we can't work.
Yeah.
So what's the point of creating an empire when there's no one there to stay in the palace?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So well said. So I think that really comes through a very strong value system that your parents have put together. I would say. So who is your inspiration, both of yours?
Life has been our inspiration. The struggle we have had. We come from a very typical middle class family and very proud of it.
Yeah.
And we've never wanted to escalate ourselves into an elite group of people in the world. So I think that there's a lot of inspiration in us being middle class.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much action happening in that. We're constantly, learning. There's a lot of conversation we have. I travel a lot. I have friends from 22 years of age to 65. And the amount of learning I have between that age group is enough inspiration.
Absolutely.
Also, I think our parents have been a very strong pillar of belief in what we wanted to do. Our mother was almost like a father and father was like a mother. So that whole binaries of when you call gender equality and pretty much started subconsciously and inadvertently, it started from our homes. And I think they've always supported. When Nikhil said he failed grade 11th, they did not put pressure on him. I used to be a scholar and I used to get 98% and A grades, but they never differentiated between the two of us.
I have a similar one with my sister, by the way. I was a scholar and she would always say, but then it doesn't matter. At the end of the large scheme of things, it doesn't matter.
So our family has been a very, very strong moment of inspiration because they gave us the wings to fly and we could do whatever we wanted to do. And I think that by itself becomes the ecosystem of life that you are breathing day in and day out.
Coming back to the work bit, you've now started this whole cricket line. That's very exciting.
So SNCC was a natural progression, the Shantanu and Nikhil Cricket Club, because we've played sport most of our lives and neither of us could be cricketers for India. But because we have another medium to be closest to cricket,
right,
and we're using that to our advantage, I feel that a sport like cricket, which is a religion in India, I'm surprised that no one has a line which is talking about the nostalgia of the sport.
Yes.
And talking about the lifestyle that goes around the sport. I mean, look at the sport. There are 11 players playing and the entire country is watching.
Absolutely.
Right? So obviously everyone's celebrating the sport.
Yeah.
And because we're a brand that celebrates, it was natural for us to move into that space.
I think it's a great idea and it's got phenomenal potential.
It does have, we feel so. But it also has, the good thing is that it has intent behind this. And there's a lot of research in terms of material. Because when you think of the cricket club, you're also thinking about, the Ivy League philosophy and the kind of varsity jackets and this whole preppy space, nostalgic. Pataudi is, the core inspiration.
Yeah.
So it requires the right amount of balance visually and also texturally that you should be able to wear through the year.
That's so true. So, it's such a lovely conversation we're having.
True.
And one of the things that I want to really understand is there's so much of startup culture that's happening around the country. What are the one or two things that you want to tell the other entrepreneurs or the future entrepreneurs for the country today, with all your experience? What's the message you'd like to give?
Startup community today, they really are sorted. One of the things that we had was no fear in 1999 when we started. And we see that these guys also don't have any fear.
Yeah.
They don't have fear of loss. There is no backup plan. There is no second idea. And that's amazing. So I just hope that this continues, for
it's
the
an
future.
amazing energy.
Yeah, and I think entrepreneurship in India is it is at a new level,
Right.
and you're seeing so many tech startups. A lot of the Silicon boys, the so-called Indians who had studied abroad, they're coming back and coming out with ideas. This country is right now giving you the ease of doing business.
True.
Your ideas are being aligned with how easily you can start your companies, how easily you can get registered in GST or whatever. So, things are becoming easier, which is giving, so you're not going through those blocks of red tapeism to start. I've seen those years when just formulating or forming a company meant that you had to go through so many doors of bureaucracy to start.
True.
So I think that by itself has also kickstarted this whole journey of entrepreneurship.
SNN, Shantanu, Nikhil, Couture, what's your eventual vision? Do you both have a vision statement or a mission statement that you want to?
No, the vision for Maison, if I may say, Shantanu Nikhil, has always been to represent, the most refined qualities of modern India.
Right.
It's spunk, and when I say spunk, it's spunk in the sense of its fearlessness and the heritage around the world. We just want to make sure that this is the story that India has to tell to the entire world, and that's happening. And that is, of course, the vision. The ambition is definitely to be one of the fastest growing luxury and British luxury brands that you could see coming from India. So obviously luxury being Shantanu and Nikhil, SNN by Shantanu Nikhil is British luxury. Even if SNCC find its way as a brand identity, it's going to be the luxe sporting vibe, the culture, the lifestyle that we want to portray and take it to the world. So that's what the vision is.
So on that note, would love to say that it has been great having you over in the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's
the
been a
conversation
pleasure.
was fantastic. It was lovely to see and hear what you have gone through to create these brands and what is the true ethos that Shantanu and Nikhil represent. So thank you very much for sharing this so
Pushpa.
candidly.
Thank you
so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.